Mr. Agnelorajesh is the chairman of St. Angelo's VNCT Ventures. He is a serial entrepreneur with interest in real estate development, technology, investment, and hospitality and social initiatives. Mr. Amitraj is a director of Pricewaterhouse with more than 12 years of experience in real estate and merger and acquisitions. Mr. Vaithiswaran is a corporate lawyer and tax consultant with over 27 years of experience in matters pertaining to taxes, including international taxation. Mr. Amitraj, can you provide a brief about the overall FDI scenario in India, with particular reference to real estate?
Sure, there used to be a lot of restrictions on real estate earlier, like area restrictions, and then there were a lot of conditions as to the exit mechanism, because government always used to think of real estate being hot money coming in from abroad. And to take care of it, they had put a lot of restrictions on how the funding could come and what exits can people take. Over a period of time, they have liberalized this regime. First and foremost, they allowed this listed NCD funds coming into the real estate sector. Pretty much nowadays, I think 90% of the investment in Indian real estate sector of the non-residents happen through either listed NCDs, and also now they've opened up construction finance also can be funded through the unlisted NCD structure. So that is insofar as the debt is concerned, debt investment in real estate. Coming back to equity, earlier there used to be restrictions like what should be the minimum area, then how many units should be there, etc. Now they've simply shifted to a policy saying that you make a real estate investment in equity, you stay put for 3 years from the date of investment, you can exit after completion of 3 years or completion of the project, whichever is earlier. So technically, if a residential project takes, for example, 24 months to complete, assuming approvals are already in place, you can very well exit before the completion of the 3-year stipulated period. And other benefit also that is there is, earlier the restriction used to be that this 3-year condition was not there. Any real estate investment that has come in from overseas had to stay until the completion of the period. So it used to so happen that many of the cases, for whatever reason, the approvals have not come, etc. They were not allowed to either, for that matter, sell it to a non-resident or an Indian resident who would have been the JV partner. So with this, that has been taken away. And one other significant benefit that has come out is that even during the period of 3 years, lock-in as we call, the non-resident can pretty much transfer the investment to another non-resident, which does not involve a repatriation of funds outside of India. So in some sense, there is a lot of flexibility that they have brought in. And also they have also opened up real estate investments or FDI investments into even completed projects for development. And one noticeable change is that having a property for the purpose of leasing is no longer regarded as real estate business. That technically falls under the services activity. So this used to be relevant for a lot of group companies, MNC companies, like where one company used to have the property and they wanted to share amongst various companies, which earlier was prohibited because it amounted to real estate business. Now they have opened up, which we are also seeing many of them trying to purchase the properties rather than simply take them on lease basis.
Mr. Rajesh, what are your views on joint venture? Especially with the liberalizing of the FDI norms, many strategic partners are being looked after. So there are a lot of opportunities for joint venture strategy.
So what I feel is we always assume FDI to be bringing in of the money, foreign money into the country, but it's not only the money part. If you technically see, FDIs are experts in the sectors that they invest in. So when they come and invest in India for real estate, they not only bring the money, but they also bring the expertise and the vision. What's critically to be noted here is, ultimately the customer will get a very valuable product. The selection criteria of the investor with the developer with whom the FDI will invest is going to be a filtered one. They will check their track record, they will check that vision of that particular developer, and then they will partner with them. So I feel when you bring in FDI to the country, the quality standards of development is going to be dramatically improved. There will be competition, there will be competence, there will be a quality product, there will be visionary planning, there will be master planning. There are a lot of host of benefits that will happen in these kind of joint ventures. Like when you see at Dubai, you need to have a local partner. Now there are some new rules that have come up, but they always needed a local partner to develop this country. Similarly in India, when FDI comes in, they want a strong local partner who has experience, exposure, expertise in the sector of real estate development. So I think it is a marriage of the might. And the people with the money, strategy, vision, ideas come to India, and the people who are very well established locally, they get married to such FDI funds, and ultimately the country benefits at large because you get a better infrastructure. They bring in the international standards to India, and overall the country develops. What I feel is the rest of the world will develop India as a fantastic country for real estate development. I foresee that happening very rapidly.
Mr. Amtraj, has there been a perceptible shift in trend over the years with the easing of the FDI norms in India?
So certainly, because one is real estate or FDI coming into a pure equity form, that is always seen with lot of risk because there is lot of implementation risk. So as was mentioned, only quality players may end up getting equity sort of FDI, but the debt part of FDI, like the investment that comes into the debentures, pretty much as long as the asset is good because you set up the waterfall, and there is a lot of easing around that, and certainly there is a lot of interest evidenced in this investment. Because recently we are working for a Japanese fund, and they're getting 15-16% return with a fair amount of certainty. So apart from US where the currency risk is higher, probably the other investors from this Asian countries would open up because both currencies move or expected to move in tandem.
Mr. Rajesh, how can real estate be a good investment module?
Well, when we talk about FDI, we already spoke about the quality and the competence part of it, and it can be a great model because once upon a time, the population of the country was considered as a curse on the country, but today that is the biggest strength. With more than 1.25 billion Indians, housing is definitely a biggest requirement that the country is facing. In fact, our Honorable Prime Minister Mr. Narendra Modi has the vision of creating 5 crore new houses by 2022, which means a couple of thousand houses need to be made every day. When we talk about this scale of requirement, automatically there is going to be a demand and supply gap. So when I say demand and supply, we also talk about stories where real estate market is a little sluggish for the last 2-3 years in a country like India, but probably that was a mismatch of the product and the price. The word value is improving on the depth, the meaning of the word value is deepening further. So people today will buy real estate if they assume of getting gold at the price of silver. Only then there will be a buyer. Now that competition, because of the competition, it is happening. When you market the right product to the right audience, people buy, and when people buy, demand increases. Whenever we talk about a set locality, a new locality is being set up, it will have a different price band, and in a span of 2 to 5 years, the demand multiplies because the supply is short, and that is where appreciation happens. In fact, we are very proud to say that India is one of the only countries on planet Earth today where there is a positive appreciation in real estate prices. Most of the developed countries are not having appreciation. Forget about appreciation, they also lose on their capital value after it is purchased. So there is no question of a investment being done in the asset class of real estate. When you talk about real estate in the Indian perspective, it is unlike a stock market or unlike the gold market where you don't get to leverage of buying gold or stock. Whereas in the real estate, you contribute 5%, 10% or 20%, balance comes from financial institutions, and it is a definite investment booster. It gives great returns. The simple calculation is, on a 1 crore property, if I invest 20 lakhs as my contribution and the bank funds me 80 lakhs, I can go to as much as 25 to 30 years of repayment period. Within 3 to 5 years, against my 20 lakhs, I would get an appreciation of 40-50 lakhs if the property appreciates to 1.5 crore. Against an investment of 20 lakhs, when you're talking about a return of 50 lakhs in a span of 3 to 5 years, that is phenomenal returns and assured because your money is not invested in stock which is very volatile. It can go anywhere, which is not like gold, where you have to put the whole capital together. This real estate can be then popped off to create that kind of a revenue model. Like my colleague just said, that in India now, your capital gains is come down from 3 years to 2 years. That makes it all the more interesting to make sure that you exit. Now when I say about appreciation, it does not mean flipping of properties. Over a period of time, the family which has bought a 2 BHK needs a 3 BHK. So they move on. When they move on, their third bedroom gets funded by the sale of the second bedroom, the 2 bedroom house. They go a little further, in the same amount they can buy their own real estate. there is no other investment which will make money for its own for expansion in terms of sizes for end user benefits. So I think this is a fantastic model which is visible only in India as a country.
Mr. Amitraj, does the easing of FDI norms generate interest among real estate players?
Certainly, we are seeing a lot of investment directly into the real estate sector. And also, what new trend we are looking at is many of these NBFCs are propping up, which is having a lot of funding coming in. And they are at least appearing to be one of the largest source of money, at least for the last mile funding as well as funding at the land stage. Because typically you don't end up getting bank funding for land or a construction finance beyond a particular point. So this is opening up, and in terms of real estate investment, probably you need to consider direct equity, NCD investments, and also money that has come in through the NBFCs, which is all foreign funded.
Does the private equity inflow, which is being estimated at $1 to $1.5 billion per year now, is there any chance of doubling it or tripling in the years ahead?
So certainly it is expected to go up. There was a period of lull, and this demonetization also has created some amount of uncertainty. And now we have got this RERA. So the way we look at it is with RERA, whoever were the marginal players not complying with it, all of them should ideally fall by the wayside or comply. And therefore, being a totally unregulated sector, now it's becoming highly regulated sector, so the confidence of the customers are going to go up. Likewise, the investors also would be protected because their funds won't be moved from one project to another where the completion won't get taken place.
Now with the new law that 100% FDI is allowed under automatic route in completed projects, that's for operation and management of not only townships but also shopping complexes and business centers. So developers will be able to sell the completed malls and integrated townships to foreign investors. So will it significantly increase the volume of retail real estate business?
It certainly does, because the way we look at it is the developers all this while historically what they've done is development of an asset and continue to hold. But the risk reward ratio is not good enough for them where they're continuing to hold the property, because that's where the REIT and other things have come in, because their expertise largely goes into developing a particular project from a greenfield stage compared to building a project and holding it for 20-30 years and get the rental play. So since this FDI is now allowed in a completed real estate project, it is very easy to flip over to an investor who looks at an yield rather than a development risk. And that is very good, and there's no lock-in also that's applicable for completed assets.
Mr. Rajesh, how should a NRI go about buying a property in the changing scenario?
Well, it's a very hugely changing scenario, and with FDI happening for completed project like malls, malls have gone in a wrong direction in our country. Technically, they are not good earning potential projects. So when they are getting bought over by FDIs, the same developers are now reinvesting that FDI money that they have gotten into housing projects. So housing is really going to see very brighter side in India as a country, and housing as a product. NRIs will now be super protected like any local Indians also. NRI Indians also will get protected with RERA coming up. In fact, I would like to go and claim ahead saying that with RERA coming in, India will be one of the safest property investment destinations in the world. And we all know there is a great demand, the supply is short, price correction has happened. People today are educated buyers. They know what the price, what the product should be priced at and what it should be sold at. So it's an educated buyer. This is giving rise to a very new kind of a market where today the builder cannot build what he thinks can be sold. Today he builds on the market response for the project that he should be developing. So NRIs the fear on the NRI mind was always that they invest the money in India, but they are not in the country to monitor the progress of the product that they have invested in. So they were always fearful that their money might be locked or blocked or being misused. Now that fear is gone. In fact, in the country, already actions have started on people who have defaulted in the past commitment made to people, not only to NRIs, but also to the local buyers. The scenario is changing. It will be an absolutely regulated market. Abnormal profits in real estate industry is a myth now. There cannot be abnormal profits. Real estate is also becoming like a factory. Like a typical factory would have a profit margin of 6 to 12%. So even in real estate, very shortly, even if you make 15 to 18%, it will be considered as one of the most lucrative industries. So with profit margins coming down, the end user will definitely benefit with a better product at a better price. So I think the NRIs, there is a great inflow of foreign investors, the Indian NRIs, buying big time into India, especially from Middle East, from Europe, from US, from UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. People are just pouring in, and a major percentage of the new buying which is happening is by the dollars which are coming in through NRI Indians.
Okay. Mr. Rajesh, that there has been a lot of rebased norms now established for NRIs. What do you consider as the instrumental factors to really improve the investment among NRIs?
NRIs are always at a benefit. So now, currently the rupee is behaving a little stronger to the dollar, but NRIs are a major benefit because at less dollars they can buy more rupees and invest in the real estate sector. They not only get the appreciation of the property, but they also get the difference in the dollar currency benefits that they have got. A lot of investors have benefited that in the past also. NRIs are looking towards investments because investments in real estate in the countries that they live in do not see any appreciation. There they buy real estate only to use it as an end user. Every NRI Indian has got his own connectivity, emotional connectivity with India. With the growing story and India being flashed across the world, which is one of the fastest growing economies in the world, a lot of Indians living abroad are buying units in India. They are getting it at a better price. They have seen the price differences of what it was in the past and what it is now. They are also visualizing the quality difference which used to be once upon a time and which is available today. They are also seeing the change scenario of the government rules and regulations. So I think it has overall boosted up the confidence of NRIs, and NRIs are purely investing into India. One is from the investment perspective where their capital grows, and second is for their end use. But end use can be 1 or 2 units. Beyond that, they look at it as a fantastic, safe capital investment.
Mr. Amitraj, the highlights of the revised FDA norms, removal of the requirement to bring in foreign investment within 6 months has been a big boost. So like that, exit permitted on completion of the trunk infrastructure, then investment in completed buildings has been allowed. So all these will benefit several operating companies with a large real estate holdings to monetize their non-core assets in real estate. What are your views on that? Will it encourage more companies to enter into real estate business?
So one is more companies would be now wanting to enter into real estate because access to capital is probably a bit more easier currently. And what would happen as a sector would be that it is, I think, time for consolidation with RERA coming in. And also many of them may now try to sell their already developed assets either into a REIT platform where they can recycle the capital back into new projects. That could happen where the larger ones could end up becoming even larger. Or the smaller ones, we are seeing a lot of niche players operating in not that specific or the mega scale. At a smaller scale, having better products, etc., being offering. Mm-hmm. But capital is easily available compared to what it used to be before, and there is general positive sentiment, despite whatever has been said about demonetization.
Is the FDA policy as it exists today, is it really pragmatic as an investment booster to the real estate sector?
See, from today, the FDA policy, the way it stands is, all that it says is you cannot exit before completion of the project or 3 years. I don't think it can be anything more liberal than this. Like if they make it 100% thing, then the problem of speculation would arise, like it is like hot money. So you put in the money now, buy land and then exit at a later stage where there is no lock-in. That at least they are trying to take care. At the same time, what they are also doing is they are giving a leeway for a non-resident to sell to another non-resident. But from government perspective, what they have tried to do is, if the money has come into India, it stays in India for a period of 3 years at least. Up on top, you can change the shares, etc., make the capital gain. That they are not bothered. But they do not want speculation and exchange risk to come in, where a lot of money comes in and then they try to pull it out of the country.
Do you feel the REITs is going to be a game changer?
REITs, actually all this while what used to happen was there was a lot of blame game going around, taxes not being conducive, etc. Pretty much whatever was asked for was provided, like a dividend distribution tax exemption, MAT exemption was provided. Now what is happening now is all the developers, at least we are in touch with, they are saying I'm going to get an LRD, lease rental discounting at 9.5%, where I can put the commercial property under LRD, take the money at 9 or sub 10% and recycle and put it elsewhere, But if you're putting the same property under REIT, they are expecting a 8.5% sort of a cap rate. Like you divide the rent by 8.5%. So that many investment bankers and funds are saying that if you adjust it for the currency risk, there is nothing much the investor is trying to make. From a developer perspective, they are treating probably a REIT as akin to a debt investment, which is not so, which is an equity thing. So only 3-4 players are serious about it, which also is driven more from the investors who want an exit, who already put in a lot of money. So those are the ones which would go into REIT, but who are predominantly funded by domestic money. We are still seeing that there is little less appetite for going into REIT because of this capital appreciation and other issues being there.
Is affordable housing concept, is it a favorite topic among FDI players?
Certainly, because this one is they have changed this year, as you mentioned in your thing. They've shifted the area from the built-up area to the carpet area as per RERA. So, which with that same 30 square meter or 60 square meter, you're going to get a much larger property which fits within the confines of this affordable housing. So there is a lot of benefit that comes in, and more so if you bought the land historically, this is the only place where you get to dispose your land by doing the construction and not pay a rupee of tax.
Okay.
So that is a significant advantage, and also there is coupled with service tax exemption, etc. And also being given this infra status, the benefit of it is you can access cheap source of funds like masala bonds, etc. from willing investors because it is infrastructure status. At least every single real estate player we are working with is actively considering this affordable housing. But there again, what will happen is all this while they were concentrating on higher spec property. Now if everyone try and jump into it, whether there will be enough demand, etc. Maybe if you are also trying to take a contrarian call, continue to do what you are doing, because one view is that whatever excess supply is there will get sold in the next 2 years, while everyone is probably moving towards either a commercial or, for that matter, a affordable housing.
The renting of properties has been now designated as a service and not real estate business. Is it a significant development as far as FDI is concerned?
It is a significant development, because earlier what used to happen is many companies used to have like a vacant property which they were not able to utilize in the interim. You could not monetize them. Now what we are seeing is there could be a possibility where strategic players they can start buying commercial properties for their own consumption, including the growth. Because till the time your operations catch up, you can always let out this property to any other party who is willing to, and you can monetize in the interim. And now with this advantage, the thing is you can also try buy completed projects, not just malls, etc. Any other commercial property for that matter, which can be let out, and it falls under the services definition now, which is 100% automatic route.
I would like to make a small announcement. If you have any queries during the panel discussions, kindly send it through a paper. We can really answer it. Then, so how do you summarize the FDI norms that has been eased recently?
So the way I look at it is, as a sector, nobody could have expected anything more than this, because on the debt side, it is totally or completely open, except for that undertaking that listing, which is not that big a formality. You need to just undergo the credit rating, etc. And there also there's no lock-in, etc. that is applicable, because you can sell the debt instrument even within the 3-year period to a resident investor. So on the debt side, it is completely open. On the equity side, it is just 3 years, or for that matter, completion of the project. So pretty much, I think it is liberalized. Tax also is falling in place. So it becomes like any other sector for investing in India. Nothing to do with a risk or a different sort of a perception from a regulation perspective.
So we have come to the first session. And if you have any queries, kindly send it to me. Mr. Rajesh, you could continue. What is the difference between investing in metro cities and investing on the outskirts of prominent metros?
So metro cities are today becoming too expensive for regular buying. Unless and until it is your end user requirement, there are not a lot of people who are looking at buying in metro cities like Mumbai, Chennai, Calcutta, Bangalore or Delhi. These metros, on the periphery of those metros within 100 kilometers, there is the growth prospects happening because every city is growing on all possible roads that lead out of that particular metro city. It is being seen in the last 3 to 5 years that a lot of development is happening in those zones, and that is the growth zone where your initial investment becomes nominal, and along with the growth of the city, your investment grows. So metros definitely is not a great destination to invest if it is an investment with growth perspective. As an end user, if you have a specific requirement in any part of a metro city, it's a different story. But definitely the periphery of a metro within 100 kilometers is a sure shot no-brainer. It will be an investment which will appreciate like nobody's business.
Okay. We have a query here addressed to Mr. Amit Raj. Is FDA allowed in LLP format?
So FDI in LLP for construction development is not permitted because what it says is LLP can function or get foreign investment in sectors where 100% FDI is permitted in a company without any performance linked condition. Because of this reason, in case of real estate, what is the performance linked condition is that there is a lock-in of 3 years subject to which you cannot sell. So it's more or less a settled or a considered view that FDI in LLP is not possible for real estate development.
Next question is the benefit of tax exemption to the developer. Can that be passed on to the contractor? No income tax, no ST.
Okay. So this is, I'm assuming that this is on affordable housing. So here, if you're doing a JD, possibly you can take the exemption here for the developer for his component or his portion of the property that gets sold. But as a contractor, if I'm just an EPC contractor, just taking the construction work and doing, I'm not in the business of developing or doing anything around affordable housing. It's just that I've put up a building as a service where I've undertaken the construction service. You should not be eligible for any sort of an exemption.
Mr. Rajesh, this is addressed to you. RERA in its original form is strong and benefiting the system, but state governments are making it toothless. What are your views?
Well, no developer back home in India can manage nuisance value. So what is the strength of RERA will be seen when it unfolds on the 1st of May onwards in a couple of states. I am from Maharashtra, so I know for sure from 1st of May, the RERA gets implemented. In fact, the complete backup system has been created by Tata Consultancy Services. So I won't be surprised if there are no errors on the functionality of the system. The strength of RERA will be known only after it is implemented. But let me tell you, people are so well aware about all these rules and regulations that if a buyer really wants to take a developer for a ride, if he's been misguided by the developer or being cheated to some extent, he can really make his life miserable because the government has taken this particular section for investments in real estate very, very seriously. Now, these are already in practice. RERA is not launched in a city like Mumbai, but the last 2 years for major developers in Mumbai, people who have invested in Mumbai might second that. Major developers in Mumbai are facing the heat. They are put behind bars for months together. Some developers, large names who are dealing in hundreds and thousands of crores, are behind bars for a period of more than 8 months. So the seriousness is there. The buyer has become very demanding. He knows if the developer is not going to live to his commitment, without RERA being in force also, a RERA-like situation has happened in a couple of metro cities in India. So I think RERA is the best thing to happen to India, and I'm sure a lot of buyers will get the due justice which was denied to them in the absence of such a law.
Okay. Mr. Amit Raj, can you explain about repatriation of money outside India?
So, not getting the context here.
Yeah, I think it does mean that the real estate investment, the residential and commercial property repatriation, the gentleman has not given his name.
Okay, somebody who has made an investment outside of India and then shifted back to India or other way around?
No. Please explain about repatriation of money outside India. That is sale income.
Okay.
Repatriation of sale income.
Okay, one is these rules keep changing every now and then, but what is clearly available is $1 million under the NRO account can be taken out per financial year. And also in few cases what we are advising is if you're buying a house worth more than 1 million for that matter, probably you can buy it as a co-owner between husband and wife for that matter. So that whenever you sell the property, you will end up getting this 1 million limit per person. So that 2 million as a number is fairly significant to take out in most of the cases.
I think it does apply to commercial properties also.
Yes.
And also the rental income falls within the limit of $1 million.
No, rental income is current income. There is no restriction on how much amount you can repatriate. So that is outside of the 1 million limit. 1 million is predominantly the capital that you have invested.
Rental income is outside 1 million limit.
Yeah.
What about the commercial properties? Will it fall or outside the 1 million limit?
So the sale, if you're selling anytime, that will come within the 1 million thing. But again, the commercial property, one is you can acquire it directly being a non-resident in individual capacity, or always you can acquire it through an Indian vehicle. So once you acquire it through the Indian vehicle, this 1 million limit, etc. does not apply because it falls to the normal FDI channel.
Okay. So the commercial property includes the industrial sheds also, the warehousing stock also, mall spaces also.
Yes.
To clarify further. Thank you.
So most of this, like at least what I have seen or we have seen is individuals end up buying only residential properties and probably a small size commercial properties. Anything to do with industrial warehouses, all those things typically end up going through the entity structure, which could either be a company or for that matter LLP, depending on what it is.
What is the significance of restricting only to 2 residential properties for repatriation?
So it is more like how much of speculation they would like to allow. That is one way of looking at it.
Okay.
So I would think that is that would be probably the factor behind restricting it.
I think to supplement the question, I would like to really add, you can't invest in land and repatriate. That's very clear. But you can buy land, construct house thereon and repatriate.
That's right. Thing is, money, if it coming from overseas, has to be development capital and not speculative capital. Put money in land, don't do anything. After 3-4 years, sell, take the profit out. That is what is not appreciated.
Mr. Amitra, there is also a point here. When you inherit the property also, even though the property was bought out of rupee income, that is also allowed for repatriation. That's a major concession again. And the lock-in period has also been removed now. Earlier they were insisting that the property which has been inherited, it has to be held by the person who owned it for a minimum period of 10 years. That has been removed now. The lock-in period has been removed now.
So in some sense, they are just liberalizing most of the restrictions, just putting minimum checks and balances in place. I think it's moving towards less regulation, but the pace of changes is pretty high.
In fact, the repatriation benefit has been made more simpler. Now you need not go to RBI for repatriation of your money, this $1 million. All the powers have been decentralized and entrusted to the authorized foreign exchange dealers. So you have to go with a chartered account certificate that local taxes, if any due, has been duly paid. That's it, within 1 hour the money goes. Mr. Amitraj, can you share more on masala bonds issued by NTPC, HDFC, etc.?
Sure. So this masala bond is a new form of instrument which has been in vogue only for the last 2-3 years. So here it is again in terms of some sense scope creep by SEBI into the domain of RBI or other way around, whichever way you look at it. But end of the day, from an investor standpoint, it is a very good investment to put in because for the reasons there is no cap on interest that can be paid. It simply says that as per prevailing market conditions. Typically what happens is this investment would be unsecured, which itself can justify higher rate of interest from a repatriation standpoint. Second most beneficial provision is that withholding tax rate on a masala bond is only 5%. And this 5% is applicable in terms of any bond raised up till or until June 30, 2020. So technically if I have issued masala bond before 2020 June, any interest I pay therefrom in perpetuity will be liable only for a 5% withholding, which is not there in any other treaty, and this is a provision that is there in the domestic law. So this masala bond and NCDs go in tandem because NCDs historically had to be only listed. Now 3 months ago, 2.5 months ago, they have liberalized that, saying that you can also put money in unlisted NCDs. But only thing is, masala bond, there are certain restrictions where you can put money. You cannot buy land, you cannot do real estate activities. So as masala bond from a real estate sector still is restricted, because from an NCD perspective, construction development is not real estate business. But from masala bond perspective, it says any real estate activity. So hopefully that definition has to get aligned. But for that, anyway, unlisted NCD is there. The key change between unlisted NCD and masala bond is, unlisted NCD only interest up to 2020 is liable for 5% withholding. Thereafter it goes up. In masala bond, that benefit is perpetual in some sense. This is the main change around masala bond.
Mr. Rajesh, you can answer this. How investor should select a real estate project for doing foreign investment as well as doing partnership?
It's very simple now. With RERA coming in, selection of where to invest becomes easy. The entire profile and the biodata of the developer is going to be on the site. The past performance, if there are any current criminal or civil cases, the title of the property, everything has to be adjudicated before he starts sales. People in Dubai are well versed with the RERA rules in Dubai. In fact, the rules in India are become more stringent than that. The profile will be mentioned, which will give you an idea whether it is the right group that you are investing with or not. The past performance, communication with the past customers. Today, social media has made the whole world into a small village. So you Google any developer's name or any company's name, you get your experience, their experiences with the development organization or the developers. You can then ultimately select on the basis, beginning with the quality of the developer in terms of his character, quality of the company in terms of the past performance, and definitely if it is permitted to sell, it has got all clearances in place without which they cannot sell. So I think these are some brilliant times coming up, and some very serious shopping in the real estate is happening already, and a lot of Indians staying abroad are taking advantage of the scenario. Okay. And this is just beginning. So another good news is, suddenly you will have a very short supply, because for the qualification under RERA, the government is going to launch it on 1st of May in a place like Maharashtra. And compliances are being given 3 months. So June, July, August will be the compliances period. Almost 60% of the developers might not be able to comply also. So suddenly there will be a short supply. All purchases which are happening now currently will suddenly see a sharp rise in the investments that they have done because of short supply. So I think there are champion investors in the real estate as a sector to invest in, who will take advantage of this short-term challenge which the country will face.
Mr. Amitraj, please explain buying property for resident Indian outside India. Any permission required?
So this is up to 250k you can repatriate per person per year. Again, if the property price is going to be above this, couple of things you can do is family can pool the money like a co-ownership, husband, wife, kids, etc. if they have the limit unutilized. That's one way of doing. Another point also we have advised is there's also a possibility of shifting or making the payments over 2 financial years. So that you get the limit per person 250 into 2, that is 500k. And again, if you want, you can have multiple people putting in, chipping in, which is a close family for that matter. So from an approval perspective, nothing much is required. You need to file certain declarations with the authorized dealer bank while undertaking the remittance.
Mr. Mitraj, how are the new laws going to impact the prices of luxury housing in premier destinations like Mumbai?
So the thing is, higher the compliance, somewhere the burden of it would be passed on to the customer in some sense. Because if a lot of flexibility is taken off, there is some cost of doing business that is going to go up. And also with GST, etc., we need to wait and see what would be the impact of it. Because generally the perception of the government is that this sector generates a lot of money and we need to tax them and overtax them. Mm-hmm. And that's been the overall approach. We need to wait and see, and probably Rajesh can.
But with the land cost already high and locked in, is there any room to reduce the cost in the above sector? I think this is more relevant to Mr. Rajesh.
I didn't get your question.
With the land cost already high and locked in, is there room to reduce the cost in the above sector?
Well, that's the reason there is a complete dip in sales in the heart of the metro cities. And it is becoming not possible to buy at those prices. That's the reason the city is moving away from the city and creating a new city. Like a place like Mumbai is already seeing Thane as as good as a city like Mumbai with the better prices. Mumbai has also seen Navi Mumbai. Now we are talking about Maha Mumbai. Now we are also talking about the city going up to Nasik, going up to Pune. In the next 5 to 10 years time, there won't be a gap between Mumbai and Pune. Lona is oversaturated, overdeveloped. All the patches are being developing till Khopoli. So these are places around Mumbai for the people who are not from Mumbai. What I want to say is that the market is correcting the prices now. The customer is correcting the prices now. When the land is expensive, the product becomes more expensive. People don't buy. That's it. The best punishment that you give to a expensively priced product is not buying it. There cannot be a better punishment for that. So people are learning these flaws. They are moving away from the city. New cities are being created and they are the opportunity zones. Simple.
I agree with you, Mr. Rajesh. See, we have seen in southern cities, particularly when we have made some in-depth survey, in Chennai the land prices have come down by 30%. But the landlords are still reluctant to bring down the prices. So they are well aware, but the problem is in today, not only in Chennai and other southern cities where the survey was extended, there are intermediaries, brokers who have spoiled the landlords. So even after telling them that you can't sell on outright basis in today's situation, go for joint venture development, there are reputed developers who have a time-bound plan. They are still ignorant about the whole thing. So only time will provide the fitting answer. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the first session. And thank you very much, Mr. Amit Raj and Mr. Rajesh, for their valuable input.
Thank you.
Of giving us an overview about the liberalized FDI regime and the need for taking up the real estate investment as an investment option by Mr. Rajesh. Thank you very much.